Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kevin, and here at The Rational Eater, I am making eating recovery simple. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to speak with me, there is a link in the box below. In today's video, I'm talking about hedonic eating. That is, eating for pleasure. Everybody eats. Everybody enjoys eating. It is a part of life. It's a part of culture. When you travel, you try new foods. When you go to a wedding, there's cake there. When you go to a party or a social event, there is food there. When we celebrate with food. This is a universal standard. So enjoying food, deriving pleasure from food is not wrong. It's just that for some people, that can become a serious problem. It can become a daily struggle. Some people just get too much pleasure from what they eat. If you enjoy food too much, it doesn't make you a slob. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you lazy. It doesn't make you a glutton. It doesn't make you a sinner. There are reasons why your brain responds to food greater than other people. And there's a reason why you derive so much pleasure from what you eat. And in today's video, I'm gonna explain why and what you can do about it. Everybody has favorite foods. Everybody is driven to eat. Everybody gets hungry. Everybody feels satisfied after they eat. Everybody likes to spend time with others and celebrate with food. These are natural things. The first thing I want to say here is that you are not an ADD ICT to food. I'll say it one more time, ADD ICT. I don't believe anybody is. I don't believe in the whole concept of ADD ICT to food. But what you do is you really like the behavior. You like the benefits that eating the food provides. Even a large volume of food, you derive a lot of pleasure from it. What you've done is that you have developed a strong habit, and not just a strong habit, but also a strong expectation about what that food is going to do for you. If you believe that food is going to take care of your problems, that it's going to distract you, that it's going to feel good, that it's going to make your experience better, then you are going to be driven to consume a large volume of food. And you're probably going to consume food that has a lot of fat or a lot of sugar or both. Just because you're a hedonic eater doesn't mean that your brain is broken or that you have an abnormal brain. It doesn't mean any of that. It's just through repetition, through habit, over a long period of time, you have trained yourself to derive a lot of pleasure from the food that you eat. It doesn't mean that your brain is screwed up or that you have something wrong with you. You don't need medication, you don't need surgery. You just need to retrain your brain. And the good news is you can do that. The brain is plastic. The brain can change. You can change your habits. You can change your preferences. You can derive less pleasure from what you eat. You can find pleasure in other areas of your life. Think back to the music that you listened to 10 years ago. What music were you listening to? Do you even remember? You probably listen to different music today. Think about the movies that you really liked. What movies did you watch then? Which movies are you watching now? Which shows were you watching then, and what are you watching now? My point is, preferences change. The brain changes. What you respond to changes. This is a really good thing. If you want to change something, you can do it, although it's going to take time. You don't have some genetic predisposition. There is something called like Prader-Willi, but very, very few people have that. Prader-Willi, I think, affects kids, and when they eat a lot, and they always want more food, and they have a temper tantrum if they can't get food. That's probably not you. And research has shown that some people derive more pleasure from what they eat. They respond more to food. When they eat food, their brain lights up more than somebody else. Why is that? I don't know, it's hard to explain, but that doesn't mean that you can't change this, and it doesn't mean that you're going to be a hedonic eater your whole life. So let's just assume, for whatever reason, that your brain responds to food more than the typical brain. And let's just say that you are a hedonic eater and you really like eating, more than what's normal, whatever normal is. What can you do about that? I think the most obvious thing here is to eat foods that are very simple. Eat foods that are not stimulating. This is why I'm a big fan of things like protein, like grilled meat and potatoes, or protein shakes, or plain fruits and vegetables. Don't add things like salt and sauces and condiments that are only going to make it taste better. Having a really consistent, boring diet is one of the most obvious things that you can do. Even if you overeat healthy foods, that's okay. It's easier to fix that than if you're consistently eating foods like chocolate and ice cream and cookies and candy bars. If you're a hedonic eater and you're constantly eating high-fat, high-sugar foods, focus on the type of food that you're eating first. Another thing that you're going to have to do is go sustained periods of time without having food. This was really hard for me, I'll be honest about this. Even when I was eating a boring, consistent diet, I still found myself grazing throughout the day. I didn't have like set meal times. This doesn't mean that you have to have 3 perfect meals during the day, 6 hours apart. That's not what I'm saying. But one habit that was really hard for me to break during my recovery process was not grazing. I was constantly grazing. It was like every 30 minutes I was putting something into my mouth. What I had to teach myself was that it was okay and it was preferable to go 2, 3, 4 hours without putting anything into my mouth except water when I was thirsty. But I didn't start there. I started by focusing on the quality of my diet. Once I focused on the quality of my diet, then I started to focus on going longer periods without having anything. It was kind of like an endurance test for me. And at first, I wasn't that good. I would go like 30 or 45 minutes without eating anything, and then I thought I have to eat something. Even if it was something really small, I felt like I had to eat something. I was constantly putting things into my mouth for 8 or 9 hours of the day. Another habit that was hard for me to break was to stop eating. Have you ever noticed that's a problem? You start eating and then you just want to keep eating and keep eating and keep eating. This is another sign of hedonic eating. You are deriving so much pleasure from what you're eating that you don't want the party to end. Well, parties end, right? Vacations end, good times end. At some point, you have to push away from the table. You should eat until you're full and then push away. And I know that decision to push away and stop is going to be hard because you want to keep going. So here's a tip that I have for you. Do something that's easy after your meal. Don't do anything that's hard. The worst thing you could do after a meal is immediately jump into something that is hard, whether it's physically hard or it is cognitively demanding. Do something that doesn't require any cognitive thought. I think one of the best things you can do is go take a shower or brush your teeth or watch a YouTube video like this one or browse social media. Do something that's kind of mindless. Do something that's going to help you relax. Go for a walk, that's good too. Remove yourself from the eating experience. For a lot of like binge eaters and bulimics and hedonic eaters, they don't want to stop. And that initial decision to stop is the hard part. But trust me, if you can go 5 or 10 minutes, you're gonna be fine. Trust me, you will survive. You have to expose yourself to those feelings of deprivation. And this is part of that recovery process. You cannot use food to cover whatever emotions that you have. And yes, I think eating a lot of times can be a coping mechanism. You like the entertainment, you like the escape, you don't want to deal with some feeling that you have in your life, so you use food to distract yourself. But part of being a strong, mature adult is learning to deal with negative feelings. You're going to have to be uncomfortable at some point. You have to be tough. Life is not always going to be fun and games. Life is not always going to be pleasurable. And another thing you have to expose yourself is a period of time without stimulation. This is becoming a huge problem in the era that we live in. We live in an era of constant stimulation, whether it's video, or it's audio, or it's social media, or it's text messages, or it's the news, or it's some other distracting website, or it's food, or it's alcohol. We are bombarded with stimuli all day. Learning to live without that stimuli is going to help you a lot during your recovery. And even if you don't have a formal ED and you're just a hedonic eater, which is what we're talking about here, learning to live in a low stimulus environment is going to help you immensely. This is why I say you need to practice going a long period of time. And when I say long, I'm only talking about an hour or two without stimulating yourself with food. And you're going to have to push away from the table and stop that eating experience sooner than you want to. If you use the tips in this video, it's going to be easier. But when you start making these new habits, it's going to be hard. You're going to feel deprived. You're going to feel like something is missing. And this is one of the hardest things about recovery, is that you feel like something is missing in your life and you're constantly trying to fill it. Imagine there's this giant hole in your backyard and you feel this compulsion to fill it. So you start filling it with water and dirt. That's kind of how recovery is. And it's hard to do because At first, nothing is going to fill that hole. In fact, nothing will truly be as exciting as food. It's so available, it's so easy, it's so much fun, it's so acceptable that it's hard to find anything else that can be that instant and that rewarding. But what choice do you have? You have to learn to live life without constant stimulation and constant entertainment. This is why I'm a big fan of quiet time and journaling and meditation, quiet walks, working out without stimulation. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any stimulation in your life, but you do need to have what I call stimulation fasts. And if you can incorporate these little fasts during the day, from the time you have breakfast to your last bite at the end of the day, it's going to help you become a less hedonic eater in the long run. If I can do it, you can do it. I used to have a lot of these habits and a lot of these behaviors. I used to have a hard time stopping. I used to constantly graze. I used to derive a lot of pleasure and a lot of satisfaction from what I ate. But with time and with practice and with consistency, I have changed my brain. My brain can change, yours can too. Let's talk a little bit about satisfaction versus fullness. I'm not a promoter of intuitive eating or gentle nutrition by any means. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you've probably heard the words fullness and satisfaction. Fullness to me is a physical feeling. Are you full? Have you put enough food into your body? And the truth is, you probably need less than what you think. This is especially true if you've been a binge eater. If you're a binge eater, you're used to eating large volumes of food. Recalibrating your mind and getting used to smaller portions is going to take time. This is why you should not go from binge eating one day to going on a really strict diet the next. That is like shock therapy. That will not work. That's also a reason why I'm not a big fan of cold turkey either. But you want to feel full after a meal. The Japanese, or I think the Okinawans, they have this word, and I forget how to say it in the Japanese, but it means like 80% full. So don't be stuffed. Don't be like a good American and go to a restaurant and feel stuffed. Don't feel so stuffed that you have to like undo your belt and to give yourself room to breathe. Don't treat every meal like Thanksgiving dinner. That is not fullness. You know what fullness feels like. I don't have to explain it to you. I don't have to explain what hunger feels like. Everybody knows it. Satisfaction, on the other hand, is more of an emotional state. Do you feel satisfied with that meal? I'll give you an example. I went to a high-end restaurant about a month ago, and all I got was this tiny portion of salmon and some asparagus. I was neither full nor satisfied. Had the salmon been a little bigger, had they provided a little more asparagus, I would have felt both. But when you're a hedonic eater, you can feel full without being satisfied. And part of the reason why you keep eating is to chase that satisfaction. Even though you are full, even though you've had enough, you still don't feel like you've had enough. It sounds like a scarcity mentality. Like, I'm not going to be happy or satisfied unless I have all of this food. Get used to having smaller portions. You can be happy, full, and satisfied on smaller portions, but you're going to have to train yourself to do it. And like I said, this is going to suck at first. When you take something fun and exciting away, your brain gives you resistance. I'll give you another example here. Have you ever wanted seconds? Even though you were full, you wanted seconds because it tasted so good. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like meatballs or something, or some other comfort food. So you went back for seconds. You were seeking satisfaction, even though you were already full. Or when the dessert cart comes and they show you all of these amazing desserts, that's chasing satisfaction, not fullness. If you're having dessert, you're not eating dessert because you're not full. It's because you're not satisfied. As I explained in a previous video, when you eat a whole, simple, unstimulating or unexciting diet, you become more grateful for the food that you eat. I don't want you to feel guilty because there are people in this world who really don't have enough food. They don't have enough calories. But I do encourage you to be more grateful. Be more grateful for more reasonable portions and be grateful for food that is not as exciting. What I want you to do is to become a more physiological eater and a less psychological eater. Chase fullness, not satisfaction. Don't chase pleasure in the moment, chase long-term satisfaction. Pushing away from the table early, that might not feel good in the moment, but that's going to be better for your waistline. If you have fitness goals or weight loss goals, you're going to achieve those. If you go back for seconds and you're already full, that's fine. It's going to be fun and pleasurable today, but at what cost to your goals in the future? And no, I'm not saying you should go hungry. I'm not saying you should restrict. I'm not saying you should starve yourself. What I am saying is that you should have portions that help you feel full, that provide the nutrients and the calories that you need, and then move on. Again, the more physiological you can become, the better. I know this is unpopular, but using food or chemicals to fix your emotional problems or because you just want to have fun and pleasure is usually not a good idea. I'm not against eating food just for pleasure and just for entertainment, but it should be a small part of your diet. Too much pleasure from anything is a bad thing, and it will have long-term consequences. And just keep in mind that a meal might last 20 minutes, but you have to live in your body 24 hours a day. Think about that the next time you go back for seconds. Do you really need it or do you just want it? And distinguishing between need and want is really important, and it's another skill of a mature adult. Just because you want something doesn't mean you need it, and it doesn't mean that you should have it. You have to be the adult in your brain, and sometimes you have to slap the kid on the wrist and tell him no. Let's summarize here. Everybody enjoys food. It's okay. That doesn't mean you're a wrong person, even if you are a hedonic eater. Being a hedonic eater doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you're a glutton. It doesn't mean you're lazy. But it can have long-term consequences. And if you want to have a certain body or a certain weight or certain fitness, you can't be a hedonic eater and reach those goals too. Accepting the void, pushing away sooner, denying yourself pleasure right now, accepting fullness, doing something that's easy after having your meal, accepting uncomfortable feelings, going long periods during the day without food, eating a whole simple diet that isn't exciting, distinguishing between fullness and satisfaction, distinguishing between need and want. These are habits that will serve you in the long run. And also becoming a more physiological eater. Chase long-term satisfaction, not short-term pleasure. Hope you found this video educational and entertaining. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to speak with me, there is a link in the box below. If you liked this video, I'm sure you'll like one of the other videos that you see on the screen. Click one of them and I'll see you there. And as always, eat the way you're designed to. I encourage you to be comfortable in unstimulating environments. I know it's hard, it's something that I'm still working on, but it is such a good habit to implement. Take advantage of unstimulating environments and moments of the day. Give your brain a break once in a while.